Welcome to Fabulous Women Over 40, hosted by celebrity stylist Kara Allan. Join Kara as she interviews amazing women, sometimes younger and amazing men as well, in their 40s and beyond. Here's Kara with our Fabulous Woman of the Day.
Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to another inspiring episode of the Fabulous Women Over 40 podcast. I'm your host, Kara Allan, a personal stylist and branding expert with over 22 years of experience in helping women and men create powerful presences through their appearance. This podcast is dedicated to celebrating the incredible women over 40 and sometimes men who are redefining what it means to be fabulous at any age. In today's episode, we are reconnecting with the extraordinary Gordana Biernat, a globally renowned author, speaker, and one of Oprah's SuperSoul 100 teachers. Gordana is celebrated for her profound insights on consciousness, spirituality, and personal empowerment, inspiring countless individuals to live authentically and align with their highest selves. 2 years ago, I had the privilege of an unforgettable conversation with Gordana that left us all deeply inspired. Today, we're diving back in to explore what's changed, what's evolved, and how she continues to guide us towards greater awareness and purpose in an ever-shifting world. Get ready for another transformative conversation filled with wisdom, depth, and practical tools for your journey. Welcome, Gordana. So happy to have you back.
Thank you, Kara. So happy to be back talking to you again.
It's
Look
been
amazing today.
Yes, you do too. And
Thank you.
I just wanted to thank you once again for all that you've helped me with personally on my journey. And we spent quite a bit of time together during the pandemic. So
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. It was an amazing time, and I got to know you a little bit better on a deeper level. It was
yes,
beautiful.
it was wonderful.
Mm.
So tell me, how have your personal philosophies or perspectives evolved over the past 2 years since we last spoke?
Over the past 2 years, well, it's gone from complexity to more simplicity. That's how I feel, that things are. I've always been interested in, details and understanding things on a deeper level, and that's all good. But I feel like what's happening now is that there is so much information around me that the primary thing for me is to find my focus and center myself as quick as I can. And meditation and all that helps, but in the real life, like the real world out there, I need to be able to focus myself into my center very quickly. And to speak my own language, it's been about taming the ego.
Yes.
Learning my ego how to relax a little bit so that my soul can peek into this world, and looking for ease wherever I am has been primary for me now. And it's a shift in perspective, because earlier it was more about being aware and stopping things from coming towards me, like trying to control them outside of me. Now it's a different place. It comes from within, and I know that whatever comes towards me, I am able to handle it if I'm looking for ease. When I find the place where there is ease, I can enter the problem from that perspective. And in that sense, I will always feel at ease and relaxed while I'm dealing with the problem. So it's strongly connected to understanding that we all have almost the same purpose here on earth. Every human being, the way I see it, has one purpose.
Right.
But it is different for each and every one of us because it expresses it in a different way. And I've realized that the purpose for us human beings is to be able to transform negative energy into a positive manifestation. Now, that negative energy can be anything. It can be one thing for you and something totally different for me. And how I transform it is different for me and different from you. What kind of positive manifestation we express is different. But the process is negative information, transforming it into a positive manifestation. Now, this doesn't mean to lie, to lie to yourself. There is no problem and I'm not dealing with it.
Right.
It's a question of seeing the problem, really feeling it, seeing the shadow, the darkness of it, and still
Mm-hmm.
being able to transform it into something that becomes beneficial for you. And that's the positive manifestation. And for me, this has been the most, the biggest difference, that I'm very aware of that process. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
not afraid of the negative stuff that is coming towards me. I'm more interested in the transformational process going on within me and
Right.
what kind of expression it will take in the world and for me, so that it has to be beneficial and some kind of positive vibe around it.
Mm-hmm. I love that. That's
Mhm.
really needed, let's just say.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and you touched on ego. Now that's always a topic, right? Because
Yeah.
I don't know. For me, most people assume ego could be something bad, right? Somebody's really an
Hmm.
egomaniac or whatever.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
ego can be good too. Could you have any thoughts on that? Of like how people can tell what's being crazy in your ego and what is like a positive thing about having a good ego or whatever you want to call it.
Mm, yeah, well, the Buddhists and other religions tell you um, you have to kill the ego. Well,
Hmm.
kill is maybe a hard word, but you need to suppress it. It needs to be you need to release yourself from the ego. The problem
Hmm.
is that when you enter this world as a soul, you cannot experience this world without your ego. The
Hmm.
ego is a tool that the soul uses in order to explore the physical reality.
Right.
Now, the ego is a container. It contains you and your soul's desires here.
Mm-hmm.
But if you are not focused on your soul purpose here, the
Right.
ego can become the driver, so to speak. And that's
Mm-hmm.
when you become an egomaniac. Your ego takes over. You're not present with your soul, and you
Right.
become separate from the world in a sense, because the ego is here to separate your soul from all that is. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like this container here. If you look at the glass here,
Right.
so that let's say that your soul is the water in the glass and your
Mm-hmm.
ego is the glass. Now,
Mm-hmm.
if you tame your ego and you use it the way it was supposed to be used here, it
Right.
contains your dreams, it contains your visions, it contains your desires, but
Mm-hmm.
it also contains your nightmares and it contains your fears and your worries. All of it
Mm-hmm.
is here. So if you allow your soul to use the ego to look at the world and look for your dreams and create whatever it is that you want in this reality, you're using ego in the way that it's supposed to be used, in a beneficial way,
Right.
knowing that you cannot harm anyone else, you cannot change anyone else,
Mm-hmm.
but you can still have your dreams and continue to work towards your dreams. That's where ego becomes a tool for
Right.
you. It's when you are focused on the fears and the the wants and needs in this reality, when you forget that you are here as a soul, when you feel separate from the world, when you think that you can control other people, when you think that you can harm other people and there are no consequences,
Mm-hmm.
this glass becomes tainted. And soul cannot peek out and see the world. And you look at the world through the eyes of ego. It
Right.
becomes very lonely. It becomes very dark, and
Mm.
it becomes tight. You
Yeah.
cannot expand. So ego has two sides. It
Yes.
has this darker side where it will pull you off aside and it will tell you you can rule over others, you can control others,
Mm-hmm.
you can do whatever you want here. There are no consequences on
Mm-hmm.
earth here.
Right.
Or you can use it as an artist uses it, their ego, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
to create something new, to envision something new. Because we all have the same source, and it is all that is life force coming through each and every one of us. We need to be separate from that source in order to explore reality as human beings. This is why ego is that separation from all that is.
Right.
But if you believe in total separation, then the ego has hoodwinked you. It says, this
Mm,
is all you can see here is all that is. There is nothing more. Whereas your soul knows that the source is so much more than your human being can grasp here on.
right.
So the ego is kind of a tool, a filter that the soul uses here in this world. And
Mm-hmm.
the soul won't force you out of your ego.
Mm,
It won't tell you, listen, your ego is dominating you. It will allow you to explore whatever it is that you want to explore in this world because you have free will.
mm-hmm.
You have to wake up to when you feel like, okay, I'm seeing only darkness. I am I am hurting other people. You have to wake up in that and say, no, this is not what I want. And that's how you
Mm-hmm.
clean the surface of your ego, and you can allow soul to look out through it again. So it
Right.
might sound like a complicated thing, but it actually isn't. It's a
Yeah.
question of what kind of energy you are exploring in this reality.
Mm-hmm.
If your ego tells you you're alone, there is no one here, it's only you, there are shadows, this is a dark place to be, your ego is driving you. And you have
Yeah.
to, with your free will say, no, this can't be all that there is. Now,
Mm-hmm.
that would be like, having a near death experience. And you're like,
Right.
oh, I see, I understand what is the truth here. And you can still, you know, be the driver, be the captain of the ship, because it's your soul that is the captain of the ship.
Mm-hmm.
Your ego will tell you differently. So
Yeah.
there is two voices in ego. It's almost like the angels on your shoulder, you know.
Right.
One will tell you, no, this will show you all the worries and problems and fears in the reality. The other one will show you all the dreams and visions and ease in this reality. But it's
Mm-hmm.
still ego separating you from all that is, showing you whatever it is that you came here to explore.
Mm-hmm.
So just knowing this, when you hear a negative voice, you know that, okay, my ego is speaking.
Yeah.
You can listen to it. Don't shut it down. Listen to it. Maybe it has something to tell you, but know that you are not what the stories that ego tell you. You're the listener.
Right. That makes sense.
Mm.
And I feel like so an ego, a balanced ego, let's just say, if
Mm-hmm.
there's such a thing as
Very,
a
yeah, yeah.
is you being able to think about I want to start this new career or I want to be a musician or I want to you have to have some thought that you can do something and not like oh I couldn't do that that
Mm-hmm.
the balanced ego tells you gives you enough energy and wherewithal to and gumption I guess is a good
Mm-hmm.
word to that you could do something but
Mm-hmm.
the bad part of the ego is when you're like I'm gonna get this no matter who it hurts no matter what I gotta do like that would
Mm-hmm.
be the distinction of like what would work and what doesn't work really right because there's no kind of like right and wrong it's like what works and what doesn't work in a sense
Yes,
if that
yes,
makes
absolutely. Now, ego is a slippery thing because
yeah
it's not just that you will hurt other people or, walk over bodies to get what you want. Most people do not vibe in that frequency. It's a small amount of people who
mm-hmm.
vibe on that frequency.
Right
Where most people vibe and they're not even aware of that it is the ego doing this is in victimhood.
yes mm-hmm.
That's where they vibe. So it would look like this. I want to start my own business. I want to do something more for myself. And then ego starts. The victimized part of your ego, the hurt part of your ego, of your childhood, would
mm-hmm.
open its mouth and it would say, who do you think you are? Starting a
Yes
business? What? Who? Why? Who would want coaching from you or who would want to buy stuff from you? Who are you?
mm-hmm.
That is ego speaking too. So
Mm-hmm.
ego might want to suppress you. And do you know why ego does this? Because ego does not like change.
Mm-hmm.
And since your ego has a purpose here, it is supposed to contain your identity. When you
Mm-hmm.
start changing your identity, ego goes berserk and says, wait, what? No, that's not part of your identity. This is who you are. You
Mm-hmm.
come from this culture and you are not supposed to do this. Why are you
Mm-hmm.
trying to do this? And it will do everything it can to keep status quo, to
Mm-hmm.
not let you expand, because it feels like death to ego if you expand. If you allow your
Mm.
soul to expand here, ego will feel like, okay, I have nothing to do here.
Yeah.
Ego's job is to contain your identity.
Mm-hmm.
But
Keep
it's
you
your
safe.
job to work with that identity until it feels like your true identity. Because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, you bring stuff from the past into the now moment. Like if you've had a bad childhood, everything that has been said and done to you is a part of your identity when you're a grown up. An
Mm-hmm.
ego will not, say, well, this isn't a good part of your identity. This is a good part. It will keep everything intact. So
Mm-hmm.
when your soul or your wisdom, you come to the insight that you need to change something,
Mm-hmm.
you start thinking, okay, what can I release from this identity? I don't need all of these things. What is true? What isn't true? What is aligned with who I want to be and become?
Right.
And you start looking at that. Ego starts being triggered and activated. So the
Mm-hmm.
more you look, the more the victim within you will say, no, that's not for you. You were born poor and you cannot be wealthy. You were born
Mm-hmm.
unintelligent. You cannot be smart. What's wrong with you? Why are you doing this?
Yeah.
And you self sabotage that way.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I think that's more of an issue for most people than, I will go over dead bodies to get what I want. That's a
Right.
small percentage of people, but the other ones are, you know, dwelling in this space where the victim within them, the triggered ego victim part within them will stop them
Mm-hmm.
and self sabotage.
Right. So what would be your expert opinion on how does somebody overcome that? Like how do you get past that when something comes up for you like that? Because self-awareness is the first part of when you can start to change something, right? And that's when the ego starts
Mm-hmm.
going, oh, no, no, we got to be safe. I'm keeping you safe. We're staying here. We're not
Yes,
doing anything. And
yes.
again, like you said, it's not well, I guess you could say it's not personal, but it kind of is, but it just
Mm-hmm.
wants to keep you safe. It wants to keep you in
Mm-hmm.
this space of surviving and not, because whatever happened to you in your childhood or whatever, and how
Mm-hmm.
you coped with it, it was what kept you going or kept you alive or
Mm-hmm.
kept you functioning in some kind of way.
Yes.
So, at some point you don't need that anymore, like you said. Some of
Mm-hmm.
it in the body,
Mm-hmm.
the higher self wants to shed that stuff, but
Yes.
the lower self is like, no, 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 we need this, we need this.
Mm-hmm.
So like it's like a little war going on inside of you,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of people are not aware of that, even what that is when it starts happening, and maybe they think they're going crazy. I don't know, or
Mm-hmm.
they just don't know what to do. So what would be your advice to somebody who's starting to experience that waking up, and then how do they
Yeah.
get past that point?
Yeah. You said it yourself, it's the awareness, becoming aware of
Mm-hmm.
it. Just the fact that you're trying to uh, expand in your consciousness is worrying enough for the ego. Just the fact that you want to expand. And why would you want to expand in your consciousness? Because you don't feel at ease in the constraint of ego. So you want to go outside, you want to explore something that will feel like an expansion to you. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
when you're joyous, you do this. You show how you expand. When you're afraid, you go like that because you're
Mm-hmm.
retracting. So you want to expand in your consciousness. Ego wants to contain you this way. So
Yeah.
just being aware of that is the first step. The next step is to realize that you are not the voices, you're the one listening to what the ego
Mm-hmm.
is saying.
Mm-hmm.
You are listening, which means that you have the power to say, no, that doesn't sound right to me.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I like that. You're the chooser of whatever it is that you're hearing. So there is, I think most of us are not aware of that you can choose what seems true to you and what doesn't. Now,
Right.
whatever seems true to you becomes a belief, and this world is built of beliefs. This
Yeah.
is the building block of every manifestation in the world. What you believe in becomes your reality.
Mm-hmm.
So coming into the space where you hear different versions, like ego saying, no, you can't do that. Soul saying, expand, try,
Mm-hmm.
go.
Mm-hmm.
Becoming aware of what wolf you want to feed.
Right.
So just knowing that you're the listener with the power to choose what
Mm-hmm.
thoughts it might seem true to you.
Yeah.
That's the first step. So that would be, for me, it would be to stop the story,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
by listening to it and discerning which voice is closer to what I want to
Mm-hmm.
become, not what I think that I was
Yes. Or what I've been.
or what I've been. Yeah, exactly. Because if I'm going to, talk in religious terms, God does not care who you were, only who you are and what you're going
Mm-hmm.
to do next. It's the
Right.
same thing with your soul. It doesn't matter what beliefs you have from the past. If you can choose a different perspective, a different view of yourself in the now moment, you're able to expand in your consciousness. When you
Yeah.
start doing that, it becomes like a habit,
Mm-hmm.
and it changes your trajectory because you're able to stop yourself before ego convinces you of things that are not true.
Mm-hmm. I
So
love.
becoming the listener, just listening, what is going on here? What's the story I'm telling myself about myself?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That is a question you need to ask yourself. When you feel that there's a lot of negative stuff going on, you feel like I can't move in any directions. What's wrong? The question is, what is the story that I am telling myself about myself?
Mm-hmm.
And just objectively look at the story.
Yeah.
I promise you, when you start looking at it, you will see how crazy it is. But you have to go in and look at it. There isn't an inch of truth in it, usually, when
Yeah.
you start looking at it. If you look at the story and you wouldn't describe a friend that way, know that
Mm-hmm.
it isn't the truth that your ego is telling.
Yeah. I love that. The
So,
listening is the thing.
yes, starting to listen to what is going on and then asking, what is the story that I am telling about myself here?
Mm-hmm.
And then another question which I ask myself is, what do I need to believe in order for this to be true?
Mm-hmm.
So if my ego says, who do you think you are? Why do you think that you can do this? You're nobody.
Right.
So what do I need to think? What do I need to believe in order for this to be true, that I am nobody?
Mm-hmm.
And then if I look at it, I am somebody. Everybody is somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And if I look at it even closer, I go down and I start looking, what have I done in my life? What have I been through? What have I learned about myself in my life? What education do I have? If I start looking like in it, I see that there is no truth in you're nobody.
Mm-hmm.
No
Mm-hmm.
zip truth, no truth. It's just a
Right.
way to keep me away from changing my identity because that's what
Mm-hmm.
ego does.
Right.
So asking those questions is the first step. And then when you see the story and you realize, oh my God, this is a crazy story. This isn't true about me.
Right.
Like if I would look at myself, I had a bad childhood. So the story would be, well, my childhood was horrible. I was suppressed by my father. I was a victim. I am a victim. But
Mm-hmm.
it's not the truth. What happened, I can reframe the story, and that's the
Mm-hmm.
next step. I
Mm-hmm.
can look at the story and say, well, okay, I was victimized and I felt small,
Mm-hmm.
but what did I learn? Who am I today? I am looking at, I'm breathing. I am here. Certain things I have in my reality, which means that I am capable of, getting certain things in my reality. And if I look back at it and say, well, maybe I am not a victim. Instead, I'm looking at what a resilient person I am,
Right.
how strong I actually was. I start reframing the story and tell it from
Mm-hmm.
a different perspective. Like I was a strong child. Otherwise I wouldn't be breathing today. I
Right.
wouldn't be alive today. So I managed it. How did I do that? And that's where you start reframing the story. And
Mm-hmm.
your ego has to listen to this because you start believing it. And ego
Right.
has to stand aside and listen to the real story about you. So you're redefining your identity while ego is watching in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And then it accepts this as a part of your new identity and it stops bugging you about it.
Yeah.
To make it simple.
Right. And then
So
even
it's,
if it does come
yeah,
back around, you just say, reframe it again. It's kind of like repetition,
yes,
right? Because sometimes it
yes,
might not work the first time. You might hear it again. And to understand that the voices you're hearing are not you. That's what a lot of
no,
people get hung up on is like the voices in my head must be me because I'm hearing them in my head, but they're
mm,
not. They're not you.
no, they are echoes from your past.
Mm-hmm.
Some things are echoes from the future, like the dreams and the desires that you have are echoes
Mm-hmm.
from the future. But most things are echoes from the past. And why these things more seem more real than the echoes from the future is because in the past, the things that are memories are actually emotional imprints in your timeline.
Mm-hmm.
So the emotional imprints, everything that has an emotion to it is is attached to the physical plane in a sense. And I'll
Mm-hmm.
give you an example of how this works. If you think a thought,
Mm-hmm.
it's like a cloud. It will pass your mind. You think of it and it passes through.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But if you think a thought and you start to believe that thought and
Mm-hmm.
you start attaching emotions to it,
Mm-hmm.
it lowers itself into a frequency which you will feel in your body through the emotion. So, this
Right.
is the first manifestation in the physical world, your emotions. So, the emotion is the anchor for the thought to express itself in this physical world. So if
Mm-hmm.
you do not attach an emotion to it, it just passes by like any
Mm-hmm.
other cloud. But if you reach for it and you attach an emotion to it, it becomes physical in your reality because you can feel it in your body. That's the first
Mm-hmm.
manifestation. It's like I have an idea about a pen and I don't like the idea and it just passes by. Then I have another idea about the pen, and this idea I feel excited about. So the excitement pulls it down here, and I start thinking about it. I create a blueprint, and then I give the blueprint to someone who can create a physical pen. And before you know it, I have this pen in my hand. So it
Mm-hmm.
went from an idea, excitement, joy, and then it's a physical pen. But without my excitement, there is no physical pen, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the emotion is the thing that brings it into the physical world. Now, if I can start becoming more aware of where I am putting my emotions, all the thoughts that I'm thinking, like if you have a thought that you're a bad person, that you're an
Right.
unworthy person, not good enough, or whatever it is, a negative thought, you will feel sadness, anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
anger, fear, those are emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And they anchor it in your body and
Mm-hmm.
then they express themselves as a reality which will be, you know, it will match whatever that frequency within you is. So you
Right.
will have more of fear, anxiety, and other negative things to
Mm-hmm.
explore because the universe won't go against your will. It
Right.
doesn't know that you don't know that you have a choice. It
Right.
just taps into your frequency through your emotion and says,
Right.
ah, okay, I see what you want. More fear. All right, I'll give you more fear so you can experience more fear because that's the order.
Right.
So if you can become aware of what emotions you are exploring here,
Mm-hmm. Right.
you become, you get more power to choose whatever it is that you want to do in this reality.
Mm-hmm.
So this is probably why this year, I didn't do an intention, like after New Year. What is it called?
Affirmation
Fini.
or like no. What do you do? What is it called now? You're like when you say I'm gonna
But
lose 50 pounds.
yes, setting an intention for the year. So,
Yeah.
you know, 5 years ago, I would do long lists of things, like
Mm.
detailed lists of this I want to do. These are my goals. This is the vision, blah, 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 blah,
Mm-hmm.
blah. And I'll forget it. 2 weeks later, I don't even remember what I wrote. a couple of years ago, I started, okay, let's boil it down to a sentence, and it would be happy, healthy, and wealthy.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean anything to me.
Yeah. It's sort of a
And
mantra, but it doesn't mean
yes,
anything in the
it
long
doesn't actually, I can't anchor it in a feeling, a real
run.
feeling.
Right.
So what I did this year is that I decided that I would focus on a power word that will trigger me into exploring the emotions that I want to explore here, because I do know that my emotions are the anchor of
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is that I'm going to explore in this reality. They are anchoring everything that I think of into this reality and becoming a physical manifestation.
Mm-hmm.
So it became really important to find what's the emotions that I want to explore here. And for me, the one that really hit home was ease.
Mm-hmm.
Wherever I am, with whatever I have, I will explore ease. If there is a problem, I will look for ease through this problem, and that's how I will solve it. So,
Mm-hmm.
ease is my goal. Everything else is for me to play with in this reality.
Mm.
When I have ease, I can see things clearly. So, ease and clarity go together. Like
Right.
when
Mm-hmm.
I have ease, there's more clarity. When there's more clarity, there's more ease. Goes
Mm-hmm.
like this. So it's like a flow. Now, in this flow, I need to have courage also in order to
Mm-hmm.
be able to take the right steps. Like when I have clarity and I feel ease, I need courage to take the first step, to trust that I don't need to know the path. I don't need to know every detail. I don't need this long list of all the things that I need to do. All I need to do is be focused on finding ease with whatever the universe brings to me.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes it easier for me to listen to the right voice, because every time I seek ease, I will hear when my ego tries to disturb me, because it's such a big difference between finding ease and listening to the chatter of the ego telling me, no, 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 you're not worthy. You cannot
Mm-hmm.
do this. This isn't for you. Blah, blah, blah. Your past doesn't allow you to do this in the future. You know, all that stuff.
Yeah.
When I focus on ease, I can hear it, but I don't need to listen to it. I will say, no, no, I'm looking for ease here. Wait a minute. And then it's like a navigational device for me.
Yeah.
So from now on, I'm going to look for power word. And for me, the power word for this year is ease. What
Yeah.
I've also found is that when I think of ease, if I put my hand on my heart, I activate my heart. And
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't allow my brain to hijack my heart.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because ego will use my brain and my critical thinking and my reasoning in order to reason me out of changing my identity.
Right.
And I don't want that. I want to be in trust and flow and know that the expansion of my consciousness can never harm me.
Right.
It will just, boost me in this world.
Mm.
So having a power word, we can go back and say, stopping the story by recognizing yourself as the objective listener, as the observer of the thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
and then realizing that you have a choice. When you know that you're the listener, that means that you can also say, stop, no, wait,
Mm-hmm.
and then reframe the story, finding the golden nuggets in it, finding what you learned from it.
Right.
If it says you're not worthy, or if it says you're not intelligent enough,
Mm-hmm.
based on what happened to you in school, you go back in that memory and you look at this and say, well, maybe the things they wanted to teach me weren't interesting to me. Because if I look at things that I am interested in, there's no
Mm.
problem with my intelligence there.
Right.
So
That's a good way of looking at it. Yeah.
you look for, again, it's ease. You're looking for the benefits. You're looking for the good traits. You're looking for the bright things there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how you find the truth about this, because, and again, this is why I see it as the truth. Only the light things, only the bright things, only the golden nuggets are the truth. Because we
Mm-hmm.
live in a benevolent universe.
Right.
Everything is done through you and for you. It is
Mm-hmm.
never against you. If it feels like it's never, if it feels like it's against you, there is something you need to learn from it. As soon as you learn whatever it is that you need to learn, it loses its grip on you, because
Mm-hmm.
that's the foundation. The universe will not harm you. It will only show you where you need to grow. And that is where you feel like, oh, this is too narrow for me. And it
Yeah.
shows you grow. You can grow out of this. And you can only grow when you feel ease and flow, and you can reframe something that is holding a grip on you, where you can reframe and find the benefits of this.
Right.
Everything, everything in our reality is for our benefit.
Yes. Like Louise
Even
Hay,
the,
everything is always working out to my good.
yes, it is. You know, sometimes I feel like we are wired to stay in our problems because it
Mm-hmm.
becomes a part of your identity. Say that you have been abused as a child,
Mm-hmm.
that is like a school in being abused. And then
Yeah.
how are you supposed to let go of that abused identity unless you have something else to transition into? Like
Mm-hmm.
you need dreams, you need blueprints of this, you need desire to do this. But if ego stops you because it wants to keep you in this solid identity, you can
Right.
never leave that behind. You stay in it. So
Right.
that's the crucial point, is to become the listener. That's where it's in between all that you have been and what you want to become. The listener
Mm-hmm.
is there and choosing what is beneficial. Is it pushing me forward, or is it pulling me back and keeping me in status quo?
Mm-hmm.
And what ego does, and I think most of us will recognize ourselves in this, is that it dwells in the problems. It dwells in the
Yes.
victimhood that happened to us because it's such a strong part of our identity. And
Mm-hmm.
I would say stop admiring the problems and start focusing on finding ease and peace.
Mm-hmm.
If your goal in your life becomes to find ease and peace in whatever it is that you're doing, you have stopped admiring the problem and allowing that to be a part of your identity.
Right.
You will never lose your background. You will never lose your past. It is
Right.
always there, but it is in your power to transform it into something that will help you, grow instead of holding you back.
Right.
And what I'm talking about here is that point where you stop that story so that it won't continue to be your identity, and look at it from a beneficial perspective, not lying, just looking at it from a beneficial perspective. I can
Mm-hmm.
give you another example of how you can do this that is more in detail. In my book, Know the Truth, where
Mm-hmm.
is it? There it is.
Fabulous book.
Ah,
Everybody needs
there
to
it is. Yes.
pick it up.
I'm actually writing another book that is about what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Those three, yes, and it's going to be finished very soon. So wait for it, and it'll be out there.
I'm
So
excited. I'm excited.
yeah, but this example that I'm giving in my book here has to do about victimhood. Now,
Mm-hmm.
my mother didn't want me. She wanted a boy, and there's reasons for this, and I've forgiven her for all that. But this is just the fact. She wanted a boy, and I was a girl, and so she left me to live with my aunt when I was 4 months old. And then she picked me up when I was 6 years old. And I always felt like I was in her way, like I was an obstacle in her reality, like I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't a part of her in a sense.
Right.
Now, there was this, they were going at a picnic, and they were going into a cave. My parents came from Serbia, so there's lots of caves and stuff. And I wanted to go with them. I was 5 years old at the time, and I was so excited because we were going on this picnic. And
Mm.
just seconds before everybody was packed into the car, the entire family, everybody was there, my mother says, no, she'll have to stay at home because there's no room for her in the car right
Oh my goodness.
And I'm thinking, but I'm so small. Of course, there's room for me in the car. But what I'm
Mm-hmm.
actually thinking is, how come there's no room for me with you? Why are you
Mm-hmm.
leaving me outside? And this was a memory that I cherished,
Yeah.
admired. My victim admired it because it fed my ego and the victimhood. I
Mm-hmm.
would think of this memory and I would go back and make myself feel sad by thinking about it, acknowledging my victimhood and seeing myself as a victim even as a grown up. Now,
Mm-hmm.
what I did when I started to go back in my memory and reframe the stories, look at them and reframe them, this was one of my first memories that I went back to.
Mm-hmm.
I did not stop the memory as I usually stopped in that moment when she rejects me and says, no, you will not be in the car. I allowed it to go on and I'm thinking, okay, so what happened that day? And I remembered.
Mm-hmm.
I asked my aunt to sit down with me on the pavement. Then I picked up some rocks and I put the rocks on top of each other like this, and I
Mm-hmm.
created a cave. And then my aunt and I played that we went into the cave and that I would
Mm-hmm.
see this cave from within. Now
Nice.
that could make a person sad and say, "Oh my God, so I'm so sorry for you that you had to live this, like a child, feeling sorry for the child."
Right.
What I
Right.
did was not that. I was looking at it and I'm thinking, if they won't give me an experience, I will create it myself.
Mm.
If my mother doesn't love me, well, there's other women that will love me. My aunt loved me more than anything on earth. So I
Uh.
don't need my biological mother. I actually had a mother. This
Mm-hmm.
was the mother that I had. And
Mm-hmm.
I was a strong little devil because I created my own experience. She couldn't take that experience away from me. So
Right.
I'm looking at this and I see it from a perspective of real strength because this is a child. I'm not doing it for anyone else. I'm doing it for myself. And I
Mm-hmm.
am a playful, curious, intelligent little child.
Mm-hmm.
That's the golden nuggets from this. Not that my mother didn't want me and she refused me. That's the truth too. But
Right.
if you look at it from the real perspective, I was not in need at that moment. I
Mm.
actually fulfilled my own needs and my aunt was there for me
Mm-hmm.
as a grown up. So
Right.
I reframed that story totally. And this is a story of strength for me now. When I go back to it, I'm like, yeah, but I'm such a strong little girl. This is who
Right.
I am. I'm
Yeah.
no longer the rejected, poor victim.
Mm.
That's the reframing I'm talking about. When you look
Mm-hmm.
at it, what did you do? How did you survive? That is your strength. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what you're supposed to focus on because you did survive. You are
Yeah.
here, you're breathing. This is proof enough that you survived. What did you do to survive? When you
Yeah.
look at that, you will find enormous strength.
Yeah.
Even if you compare yourself to other children, you will find enormous strength in you.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't have to be a bad thing just because it looks like it or feels like it or you remember it like it. If you go back as a balanced person now and you look at it from a higher perspective, you will find evidence and material to reframe the story so that it will fit your version, your future version of yourself, where ego doesn't feel so afraid to let go.
Mm-hmm.
Because, ego doesn't like uncertainty, it doesn't like unknown territory. But if you allow your soul to help you see new versions of you, then ego can let go of the past and
Mm-hmm.
adopt a new identity because what ego wants is an identity. It doesn't care if it's good, bad, what it is, it wants an identity. So you have to present the new version of you to ego, which means
Mm-hmm.
that you have to find it, you have to shape it, even if you look at your past, reshape it so that it fits the your future version.
Right. And what I got from that was looking at it from an outsider, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
I kind of have a similar thing that I had with my mother and my grandmother. And what
Mm-hmm.
I felt like when I went back and kind of looked at it was that even though me and my mother and you and say your mother didn't have the relationship that we think we're supposed to have or what
Yes.
traditionally is, your
Mm-hmm.
aunt, my grandmother, was filled in that gap. So I really didn't even feel like I missed anything necessarily
Yeah.
because my grandmother was such a big space and your aunt was the same for you.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're young and kind of silly and you obviously don't have the wisdom, you automatically go back, well, you didn't want me, or you didn't, like that's the ego coming up again, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
of like, my mother didn't do this, my mother didn't do that. But then when you have some perspective and you can go back in, like you said, and reframe and go,
Mm-hmm.
well, that did happen, but ultimately it was for my benefit because
Yes.
that your aunt, my grandmother, filled in that space of that gap of what I thought I didn't have. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe it was even better.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't know. And our mothers can't give us what they don't have. They're
Exactly.
just giving what they had or what they were
Mm.
given. So when you can look at it from a space of compassion and not
Yes.
just judging everybody and saying, da la 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 la, because
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
only God can judge everybody, honestly. And
Yes.
we are so free with our judgment, right? Like we're just so, you should, you ought to, you need
Mm-hmm.
to, like, and learning how to just shut up for
Mm-hmm.
once and just sort of observe more, or
Mm-hmm.
and not dwell on what you think
It's
should
supposed
have.
to be. Yes.
Yeah. Well, because
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't. This is what
Mm-hmm.
it was. So like you have to dwell in reality and not, well, if it was, if, well, there's no if, because it didn't
Mm-hmm.
happen that way.
Mm.
So I
Yeah,
think that's
there's
people getting stuck on that kind of stuff, you know.
yes. It's a question of the perspective that you take. I'll give you another example, which is even more harsh. The other example is actually a mild one. But when I was when I met my husband, I didn't marry him because you don't do that these days, but my father was really upset about this. We just moved in together. So he simply rejected me as his daughter. When the
Mm.
neighbors asked him, "Where is Gordana?" he would say, "Well, she's dead."
Oh my
This is what he
gosh.
said. So people thought that I wasn't alive, even though we lived in the same city. And
Wow.
this went on for 8 years because me and my husband, we lived together for 8 years before we decided that we wanted to have children and we married just because
Mm-hmm.
I wanted our child to have the same name as all of us, like the entire family.
Yeah,
Anyway, 8 years of
that's
being
crazy.
rejected by my father because I didn't fulfill one of his wishes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in the beginning, this really created problems with it. I felt again like being rejected, being victimized, being not a part
Mm-hmm.
of the family, being ostracized by the family, like not being worthy in a sense. There is something of worthiness in this. And
Mm-hmm.
this haunted me for years.
Yeah.
So when I retell this story, I look at it from a totally different perspective. What did I gain from this separation?
Mm.
Boy, did I gain a lot from it. For one thing,
Peace of
here's one thing.
mind, quiet.
Yes, I could finally find my own identity. I didn't have to please his ego, his narcissistic ego. I could
Mm-hmm.
do things that were just for me, doing
Right.
them the way I wanted to do them. That
Right.
was one part of it. But the other
Yeah.
part was that if I would have done what he did, say that I would get angry at him and I say, I don't want to be around you anymore. I'm shutting this relationship down. I don't want to be a part of it. I would have had to live with the guilt of that.
Mm-hmm.
He took that part. He had to live with the guilt. He had to do whatever. He was in darkness. I wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
He rejected me. I didn't reject him. So I could live in this life, but I was mistreated by him. So I
Right.
didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
This is what he did. And again, if I think that I want to be treated as everyone else who has a nice father, I will stay in victimhood. But if I
Yes.
go higher and I look
Mm-hmm.
at this and I say, well, I didn't have a nice father.
Mm.
That's how it is. It is
Mm-hmm.
as it is. Accepting what you cannot change changes everything. And I
Mm-hmm.
accept that I cannot change the fact that I didn't have a loving, kind father.
Mm-hmm.
But there is love and kindness in his action by saying, you are not a part of me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Because then he allows me to become who I am.
Mm-hmm.
He
Mm-hmm.
doesn't know it. On a spiritual level, there is an agreement in a way. I
Right.
feel like there is an agreement where he takes on the guilt of doing this and he's the one in darkness. I am not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I allowed myself to become free from him during these 8 years. And when I returned back home after we got married and he accepted us, and I could not be affected by him. Like I was my own person. During these 8 years, it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
like I was a victim all the time and oh my God, I was so sorry for myself. Instead, I
Yeah.
used that time when I look back at it, I used that time to actually get to know who I am without
Mm-hmm.
his influence, without his dominance, without his ego standing in my way. this
Yes.
is this is
Gift,
something that I am grateful for
right?
today. I
It was a
wasn't.
gift.
Yes, it was a gift. He didn't know. He
Yeah.
wrapped it in black paper and soaked it in bad stuff, but
Yeah.
it was a gift. It was a
Yeah.
gift. And when you can find the gift,
Mm-hmm.
that's gold for you. That's where that's the starting point for your new identity.
Yeah.
It's the gift in, when you get the trauma or problem, there's always a gift in that.
Yes.
Find the gift. Sometimes it's a small gift, but there's always something. This was a big
Especially
one for me, like the biggest gift ever to say, you know what, you're no longer a part of the family. Okay, that's where it
yeah.
is. So,
It that was a small, well, a big gift for you. That was like a
this was,
diamond ring.
yes,
Big.
that was a diamond ring. That was a diamond ring for me. If I know how to use it, and intuitively I knew how to use that time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And when I look back at it, the first 2 or 3 years were horrible because I was in victimhood. I felt like I
Mm-hmm.
had no one. I was
Yeah.
like an orphan, having no
Right.
one. But then
Yeah.
again, I had a husband who was amazing,
Yeah.
amazing, is
Yeah.
amazing.
And still
And
is.
that,
Yes.
yes, and still is. And I have a son who is even more amazing. So
Mm-hmm.
things worked out. If I go
Yeah.
back in my past and look at it and just find horror and sadness and
Right.
anxiety, I'm not looking the right way. I'm not
Yeah.
looking through the right, filter.
Right.
And
And
we
that's where
could
you're
talk
living.
about, yeah, we can talk about ego as a filter next time we meet because it's going to be too much for your audience today. We've dwelled so deep into ego and identity and, visions and future self. So I think that not going into the filters, but ego is actually a filter. It's like
Yeah.
wearing glasses. If your ego is driving you, you're looking through this into this reality through tainted glass.
Mm-hmm. But I think this is all important because, these are the things that look at the times we're living in and the crazy
Yeah.
things that are happening.
Mm, mm,
And I think people need practical
yeah.
tips, of how to live and
Mm,
navigate things because you can easily fall into that trap of thinking, "Oh my God, why is this happening to me?" And
mm,
my thought always goes back to the Bible of how God says, your death and life is in the power of the tongue. And in Job,
mm,
where he kept, I guess it doesn't reference where he started thinking about bad things,
mm,
but he said, "The thing that I have most feared has come upon me." And because
mm.
that's if you dwell on things thinking to
Yes.
you that are going to come in, then it happens. I used to
Mm,
feel like, oh my God, what if I got in a car accident with my kids and I couldn't help them? And that was always kind of playing in my mind. And then it
mm.
happened. And then I was
Yes.
like, but in the
Mm,
in the middle of it, I had the strength and the fortitude to deal with the situation. And after that, I stopped thinking that. I stopped thinking anything
mm,
that, or stopped
mm.
dwelling on it because you can't necessarily block thoughts when they come. You just, like you
No.
said, let them float by like a little cloud, like
Hmm.
in the cartoons where you see this little thought coming out of somebody's head. You just kind
Yes.
of let it float by instead of,
Mm,
dwelling on it and saying, oh my God, this is terrible.
hmm.
Like you got to just, as you said, listen. And
Hmm.
where's this coming from? Where's this fear coming from? Why am I
Yes.
thinking that that's the worst case scenario
Is
of what
this
might happen?
true? Like,
You know?
yeah.
So
Mm,
how do you think people in going forward too, in the crazy life that we're dealing
mm,
with and all the things that
mm,
are happening now, what's with the tips that you give us, what's some other maybe two things that people can really get that are gonna help them navigate from now on and
mm,
just when things start happening, what to do?
mm,
Not focusing on themselves and their ego, but like as things
mm,
happen, how do you deal with them in a
mm.
practical way?
Yeah, I mean, breathing is always something. Like when
Right.
you forget to breathe, why is breathing? I know it sounds generic, everybody says, oh, you have to breathe, breathe.
True.
But it is the truth because what happens when you start breathing, and you don't need to sit down, you just need to take a deep breath in and out a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
What happens is every time you are in fear, you are not allowing enough oxygen to your brain. And what happens in your brain?
Mm,
It starts an alarm, like we're dying here. So it
mm,
brings fear
right.
into your body. When you
Right.
start breathing deep breaths a couple of times, what happens is you send signal to your brain that everything is okay. It's
Mm,
okay.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it expands, your mind can expand and it gives you clarity.
Okay.
Unless you breathe, you will not have clarity. You will have a point of vision which is very narrow and it's always fear,
Mm,
anxiety and fear. It's always there. So most of us are not in fear, actually. We are in anxiety. And
mm,
it
mm,
took me some time to get this. Just knowing the difference between fear and anxiety is really important because if you feel fear, fear is a signal that you need to act. You either need to run, play dead, fight, whatever it is. It is a signal to act. Most of us
mm,
don't see the difference between fear and
mm-hmm.
anxiety. Anxiety is something different. It's
Mm-hmm.
like uh, it's like a fog coming around you and you know holding you. This is
Mm-hmm.
anxiety. Fear has a goal. There is it's like a bear in the doorway. There is an
Mm-hmm.
object for it.
Right.
Anxiety has no object. It is lingering. It's like a fog around you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Anxiety is a signal to do the opposite of what fear tells you to do. Fear tells you to act.
Okay.
Anxiety is a signal that tells you you need to breathe. You need
Mm,
clarity because if you're in fog, you need clarity. You need the fog to go away and to think clearly. So, how do you do that? You do that with breath. You start breathing deeply to allow your body to align with the truth within you, which is there is no fear right
mm,
now. If
mm.
you're alone in your room and you're thinking fearful thoughts, those are an illusion.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
becoming aware, is this real fear? Is there a bear there? Is there a car running towards me? Is there a thief in my home? Is my home on fire? That is fear. You need to act on it and then you let it go. But
Right.
if you're constantly having thoughts that return like a carousel, that bring fear to you, you have to detach the fear from the thought so that it
Mm,
can stop coming back to you. What it wants is like fishing. It wants you to hook the emotion and pull it
mm,
into
mm.
your reality so that it can become your reality. And what
Right.
you and I have been talking about is becoming aware of that moment, and you do that best with breathing. Like when
Mm,
you start, this is a physical way to ground yourself in your truth. When you start
mm-hmm.
breathing, your
Yeah.
body will help you get clarity. So, breath, regardless of how, I'm not going to teach you to breathe, your body knows how to do that. But
Yeah.
remembering that you need to breathe.
Mm-hmm.
And what you can do to boost this is actually to put your hand on your heart, because when you touch
Mm-hmm.
your heart, it activates, it feels it, and it activates itself and
Mm-hmm.
helps your brain to think clearly.
Mm, got it. Love that.
So, breathing, touching your heart, those are practical things you need to do whenever a thought comes back, and also recognizing the difference between fear and anxiety and
Mm-hmm.
knowing what you need to do. When you have anxiety, you think that you need to do something, you need to run away, talk to someone, do something, when
Mm,
actually what it wants you to do is to slow down, stop,
mm-hmm.
breathe, and then recognize the story.
Right.
But the slowing down, stopping, and breathing that is what it wants you to do. This
Mm-hmm.
is Anxiety is a teacher. It teaches you how to stop time, breathe, and get clarity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that. super helpful. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
And
So
because
now,
I think too, our body, since like you said, our body knows how to breathe, but
yes.
I think people don't consider that enough of like taking the just stopping, because a
Mm-hmm.
lot of time, I mean, obviously if there's something happening that needs to
Mm-hmm.
be addressed, then that's not. But if you're thinking about something, it's like you're reliving it and you're living in that fear and that craziness all over again, like it's happening. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, that's where you get stuck, and that's where you get in that, like you
Mm-hmm.
said, the carousel of crazy. And
Yeah.
we want to detach from that. It's just,
Mm-hmm.
okay, what's happening right now that I need to focus on? What
Mm-hmm.
is it that this feeling or this thought or whatever is trying to get my
Mm-hmm.
attention about? What do I need to do? What
This
or
is,
maybe I just need to sit here and relax for a minute. I don't know. Depends on what
you
it is.
know, becoming aware
Mhm.
is the first thing. Like in the beginning, stopping this and actually listening to the story and starting to breathe, it feels like, when Superman stops the train, that's how
Mhm.
it feels. You have to be
Mhm.
Superman every single time to stop that running train. And the more
Mhm.
you do it, the easier it becomes. And
Mhm.
before you know it, the train stops before you can stop it because you have been practicing. Like the best place to practice it is with people whom you love.
Mhm.
So say that you're in an argument with someone and you feel like triggered. You know that your ego is awakened and you want to lash back, you want to win, you want to show them that they're wrong.
Mhm.
This is a perfect place to say, stop, wait, let's breathe, to take a
Mhm.
pause, to, move out of the discussion instead and say, okay, let's take a pause, let's breathe. Now,
Mhm.
you have to be very aware of your goal in this. Your goal
Mhm.
is to seek ease. Your goal is not to be recognized as the victim. Your goal is not to win the argument. Your goal
Mhm.
is to
Mhm.
find ease for everyone. If
Right.
that means to stop and pause the discussion, that is what you do. And then you come back. This I learned from my son because
Mm.
as a mother, I can be the greatest coach and the greatest visionary in the world, but when it comes to your children, you become a I don't know what happens, but you cannot think clearly. There is emotions in the way. And he would say, listen, we need to pause, we need to think, and we can come back and speak later on. And we started doing this together, and now I do it by myself. I'm like, with myself, I'm like, okay, I need to pause this right now.
Right.
If this carousel is going on like this, and I need to pause for a minute. I give myself permission to pause. I do not
Mm.
fall into the victimhood that, oh my God, I have so many thoughts. There's so many problems in my life. And then I go spin into that. No, I
Mm.
stop it and I think, what is my goal? My goal is to find ease. How do I find ease? Okay, pause, look at the thoughts. What's true? What isn't? What do I believe? What do I not believe? Why do I believe what I believe? And then
Mhm.
let it go.
Yeah. That's amazing. I love that your
Yeah.
son, and how old is your son?
He's 27 now. He moved out a year ago. It will be a
Mm.
year in a month.
Uh-huh. But
That's
he's not too
another
far
tough.
away, right?
No, he's not. He's in the same city, but you never know. I mean, they move. Oh, it's such a tough thing. I wonder why people are not talking about that, parents and how they feel when their children move out. This is a big thing for me. Like, oh, it
Yeah.
triggered a lot of things in me.
Yeah, I think we want to kind of keep them close forever. I mean,
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
have three children as well, as you know, and
Hmm.
my son is the only one that's not local. He's in North Carolina. Well,
Hmm.
he's actually here. He's coming to visit today, but
Hmm.
my younger daughter lives with me with three kids, and then
Hmm.
my older daughter's here all the time with her too. So it's like,
Hmm.
as a parent, I get what you're saying, because you feel safer having them
Yes.
around, because
Yes.
not that
Yes.
you can keep anything from happening, and not that you want to be the helicopter parent either,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
it just feels safe having them
Yes.
close by. Like you
Yes.
can reach out and touch them and
Yeah.
know that they're mentally,
Mm.
emotionally, physically safe. It's
Mm.
that's a thing. And I think a lot of cultures American culture is probably the only one that encourages kids to, I've heard so many parents say, you're 18, get out, you can do it. And I'm like, huh?
Yeah, no, no, no,
Who
no.
does that?
No.
Whereas most other cultures, you stay with your parents till you're married for the most
Yes.
part. And sometimes you have several generations living in a house because
Yes.
that's just the culture. And it does
Yeah.
foster a good, healthy family dynamic, I think, if it works, right? If
If it
it's,
works, yes.
no, we
Yeah.
don't want to do that. But
Yeah.
if it's good, it's
Absolutely.
good. So,
Absolutely. I mean, that's, I could say, if I look at this from a, higher perspective, what am I learning about myself in this process? Because it's been a tough process for me. I have a really
mm,
good relationship with my son. We both do. And him moving out, and it was very quickly, it started a process within me where I tried to control things around me. I feel like, oh my God, he's leaving, I'm losing him.
yeah,
Thoughts
mm,
like this, spinning, spinning, spinning. And I'm
yeah,
thinking, okay, I need to stop spinning like this because these
hmm
are the stories that I keep telling myself. I'm losing my son. He is moving away, blah, 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 everything. I need to
right,
stop that and start to look at, okay, so what can I control in
mm,
this?
hmm
And I
yeah,
cannot control where he lives. I cannot control what he does. I cannot control if he's here or not. What I can
hmm
control is my reactions to all of these things.
hmm
I can control my thoughts, my feelings, my ideas about this. And that's where I need to put my energy in.
right. Not
So go ahead.
everything else. Not everything
Yes,
else.
yes. Because that's when you feel drained, when you're focused on the things that you actually cannot control. You can't control your past, you can't control your future, you can't control what your neighbors are doing, you can't control what other people think. Heck,
No.
you can't even control your own thoughts. So the control is cannot be there. And I'm not saying that I'm trying to control my son. I am trying to control my experience in this world. I'm trying
Mm-hmm.
to, have him close to me because I enjoy it. But I
Yeah.
have to recognize that's out of my control. I'll have to find ways to enjoy my relationship with him without him being here. So
Yeah.
finding new ways, new ways to interact with him has been kind of the thing that I've been doing for the past year. New
Well, yeah.
ways of finding joy, even though he's not physically with me.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
control ultimately is an illusion,
Yes.
If you literally take somebody and lock them some away, you can't control things. And I think
No.
we, as parents especially, we parent somewhat how we were parented too, and we try to do differently, but then
Hmm.
sometimes we're other extremes where we're too lax and not
Yes.
giving
Yes.
them boundaries and things that they need
Yeah.
for structure.
Yes.
And then you get people doing crazy things out here in the world, which we
Mm.
know about. So like
Yes.
you got to find that balance, and it's a hard thing. There are manuals on parenting, but that doesn't apply to every kid. You know what I mean?
No.
Or every
No.
situation. So
Actually, it's a question of managing oneself.
hmm yeah,
Ultimately, it's a question of managing yourself, and everything else kind of aligns when you
yeah,
do that. So it's
hmm
always a question of how am I interpreting this? How am I experiencing this? What is my perception here? Is this closer to the truth or closer to some kind of lie or whatever it is, illusion here in the
hmm
reality? And when you start doing that as an exercise, what we were talking about, stopping the story, looking at it, you
hmm
become more and more aware of that you actually have no control of anything.
yeah,
What will give you um, some kind of stability is to know that you have the ability to turn every negative thing into something beneficial for you. And
hmm
that's where you become stable. So you don't try to control the outer reality, the negative stuff that is coming towards you. You actually bring it in and then transform it into a positive manifestation for you. That's
hmm
the whole thing. And we started off with that kind of,
hmm
that's the process to do that.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Because we all need a little help.
Yes, we do. All of us, we all need that. That's how it is. Yeah,
Nobody's coined the whatever on that. Everybody who seems like they could be the calmest person can lose it at some point because
absolutely. That's a part of being a
that's
human.
life.
Yes, that's a
Yeah.
part of being a human. I mean, we are humans, or we are souls having a human experience
Mm-hmm,
here. There
mm-hmm,
is no difference between my body and my soul. Actually, my body is a slower version of my soul, like a
mm-hmm.
slower frequency or a lower frequency than my soul. But there's no disconnection between them. The ego wants to create that, but there is actually no disconnection between them.
Yeah.
So finding ways for the body to feel ease is a way to allow more soul into this reality through
Mm-hmm.
you. And that gives you life force that creates circumstances like synchronicities in your reality where you feel like you're in control of your life,
I
even though
love
control is an illusion, but you
it.
feel at ease in your
Yeah, a
reality.
couple of years ago, I got tattoos on my shoulder that said trust and I forget what the other was, trust in something, and then ease and grace on the other one. So I love that you said
Oh,
ease because it's like, just trusting the process, even if you don't know what's going to happen. Because, even if we do as much as we think we can do and all the actions we take and, all the
yes,
grasping and all the everything
yes,
that we
yes.
do, and at the end of the day, it's going to be what it's going to be. We can't
Mm,
control it. So you do what you
mm,
can, and you leave the rest to God.
mm.
Just have peace, and
Yes.
all of the anxiety meds that people are on and everything else would probably float away if you had
Mm,
just learned to
mm,
trust that the best is always happening for you. you
mm.
know and life is
Yeah.
good. Life is always, even when it's not, life is good.
Yeah, we can end this conversation with one thing that I want to share, and this is, you know how they say life happens for you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I would go further than that. It's not just for you; it is for you, but it actually happens through you,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
never against you,
Yeah.
through you, which means that it is always connected to your free will. Now, if you're not aware of that you're having a free will when everything seems like random to you and you're at the bottom somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
then that is the frequency that the universe connects to, and that is the life that is presented to you. But it happens through you. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
happen to you. In a sense, it happens for you. But it's
Mm-hmm.
not like if it's if it's not beneficial, it's not for you. It's against you. It's
Right.
always for you
Yeah.
and through you.
Yes.
That's
Everything is
something you
always
need
for
to
your
remember. Always, always,
always.
always, always. You just need to go back and see how it worked for you, not
Yeah.
against you.
And look at it from a not a judgmental position, but
Yes.
impartial almost. Like, what was it that, why did this happen? But looking at who you've become and how that happened for
Mm-hmm.
you, because what would
Yeah.
have been the alternative? That
Mm.
might not have been so good, you know what I mean? And you don't
Exactly.
know what that is anyway. So, and it doesn't matter. It's like
No.
all that matters is now. So
Mm.
that's what we need to live from.
Yeah. It's so funny that you would use matter as the word because it doesn't matter means it doesn't take physical form.
Mm-hmm.
Matter is physical form. So
Mm-hmm.
if you say it doesn't matter, it won't matter. If you really mean it, it won't become matter in your reality. This
Yeah.
is the choice that you make. A
Yeah.
choice. If ego says you're not good enough and you say, this doesn't matter to me, I know that I'm good enough, it
Yeah.
cannot matter. It cannot
Mm-mm.
take form because you're not feeding it with energy, which is,
Yep.
you know, emotion,
Yeah.
energy in motion, emotion, feelings. Can't feed it
Emotion.
with that. Mm.
Emotion is the food for
Yes, yes,
that.
yes.
That's a good way
It
of,
is
looking at it. I like that. Yeah.
energy in motion and it kind of pours itself, the thought pours itself into this energy of emotion and then it starts vibrating in your body. And that's where you have the
Mm,
physical manifestation of it.
yeah. My grandfather, he died when he was
Mm,
95, I think it was,
mm.
and he always used to say, "Age is mind over matter. If you don't mind, it don't matter."
Yes, exactly. That's lovely. That's a beautiful way to end.
Yes. So tell us when your book comes out, because we have to get back and talk about that. So, I mean, I could talk to you
Yes.
for hours, like it's crazy. So, I mean, I
Yeah.
think you need your own podcast, and because
I
I
probably
love
do. Yes.
what you
Yes.
have to give, and it's always just so thoughtful. Just everything you have to say is
Mm.
amazing. So, when's the book come out?
Well, I don't know exactly yet, but I think that in the first 3 months of this year,
Hmm.
uh, it will probably come to fruition then. I
Okay.
will I will send you an email when it's out, and then we can do another podcast, right?
Oh, that'll be amazing. And so, where
Yay!
can everybody find you, and where are you most likely to be?
Well,
So,
most likely to be, I am on X and on Instagram, and my handle is my power talk.
okay.
That's
And
the easiest way to find me. Yeah.
you still do private coaching, right? Too.
Yes, I do one-on-one coaching also.
Okay,
Yes,
amazing.
yes,
So, and I'm a testament to say that it changed my life. It helped me.
yes,
We probably did I don't know, a lot. It was over a year, maybe, I think, or at least 6 months. I can't remember, but
yeah,
it was
yeah.
a lot. We did a lot of work.
Yes, and it was amazing to see the transformation within you. I love when I can see that. I love how you started to change your story about yourself. I don't know if you were aware of it, but you started to change the story, and it's so beautiful to see. So look
Woo.
where it got you.
Well, I have you. Well, we both did the work, right? Because you
Yes,
were the vehicle and
absolutely.
I drove the car.
Yes,
So
yes, yes, yes. So beautiful. That's how it was. Exactly.
yes,
Yes.
because you have to do the work. Otherwise, it's just information that just goes nowhere.
Yes,
Obviously.
it floats out there. You know, if anyone wants to reach me that are not on social media, they can always write to info@mypowertalk.com and it will reach my mail then.
I love it. Well, thank
Mm.
you so much. It was
Thank
such
you.
an amazing conversation,
Mm.
and we will be back together soon.
Yes,
Hopefully, soon, soon, soon. Not 2 years
yes.
this time.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Kara, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for everyone listening to.
Yes, thank you, and everybody that's listening. And we will see you on the next episode of Fabulous Women Over 40. Ciao.
Ciao.
Thank you for joining us today. Please subscribe so you won't miss our next conscious conversation with Kara and her fabulous guests. Follow Kara on social, on Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, Clubhouse, @Kara Allan, and connect with her on her website at karaallan.com. Also, leave a review if you enjoyed the conversation. Thanks again, and see you next time.